Hey, I hope you're having a great day. In this video, I am going to show you the exact steps to close an extra $70,000 in sales in 90 days. There's so many ways to get leads and clients nowadays, right? There's a lot of modern sales and marketing strategies out there. But in this video, I am going to show you how you can bring in additional revenue for your B2B business using podcast and YouTube. So this is for you if you are selling a high ticket service and your target customer are business owners, corporate executives, or you are simply someone who wants to talk and connect with high net worth individuals. You like having conversations, and it is also going to be perfect for you if you've already thought about having a podcast, but you are not sure how to get started and how to use it to bring in revenue to your company. Hey, before anything else, I want to thank you for your time and for your attention. I promise to not take that for granted, and I will do everything in my power to, make this well worth your time. So, to get started, I would like to first, of course, introduce you to one of a case study so that you know that what I'm about to share with you here today is something that is proven and tested. So, one of my clients recently were able to generate $72,000 in revenue. And he also said in his recommendation that he was able to cut his sales cycle by nearly 60%. And this is Travis Cody. He is an expert when it comes to helping people write and publish a book. So he works with CEOs and founders that wants to write and publish a book and use their book to bring in, of course, revenue to the company and expand their presence in terms of their personal brand. So there are three steps to do this, and this is also what we did for Travis Cody and for this particular client. The very first thing that you want to do is to launch your podcast. And I want to go through this because there's a lot of common questions that we receive when it comes to having a podcast. So, first of all, a common question that we get is that, do I need to have a podcast? Well, you don't have to have a podcast because this is where you launch your podcast, right? So you don't have to have an existing podcast. If you already have an existing podcast, that's great. All you have to do is to use the strategy and the sales process that this system brings in and implement that in your podcast. But if you don't have a podcast yet, then this is a perfect time for you to get started. So here's what I like to show you. I'm going to share my screen again, and I am going to share with you an example of a campaign that we are running for a podcast sales system, right? So this is client, and let's check this out. In this example, okay, if you are just about to launch your podcast and you want to emphasize that in your message that you are inviting them to become a guest in your podcast because you're about to launch your podcast, right? And you could ask them if they can become part of your first group of guests. And if you already have a podcast, then simply what you need to do is to invite them to the podcast that you have. You tell them about the name of the podcast, show them example, or redirect them to the channel of that podcast, right? So to clarify, you don't need to have an existing podcast because this is where you could just, launch your podcast. And another question that you would face that or what we usually face is this: what motivates the guest, right? What motivates this high level people to become part of a podcast? These are decision makers. Sometimes these are CEOs of companies with thousands of employees. So what makes them say yes to a podcast? So there's a few things. Number one, people who are highly successful are very open, and they actually love sharing their story and their journey, and the lessons that they learned along the way. So if you position your podcast in a way where it is a way for you to give back to the younger generation, they would almost always say yes, right? Number two, people in general love to talk about themselves and to share their story, right? And to, of course, help people. So you can use that. You can use we can call it like ego, but in a good way, right? You can take advantage of that, again, in a good way as well, so that you can have a conversation with them. And these are the things that, are very, very simply makes the people that you want to invite say yes to your podcast. And sometimes if you want to be more specific on the topic and you are contacting specific type of people for this one, then they are also most likely going to say yes. So that is very simple. That is just a very, very simple way for you to, invite people to your podcast. And that's the first step. When I say launch your podcast, it simply means starting the process of getting guests in your podcast, right? Because like you wouldn't be able to create a podcast without actually having a guest first, right? So all these podcasts that we see that are already established out there, they started by booking appointments with their guest, right? Now, the podcast sales system works differently than the usual podcasts out there because the guests are already the ideal customer profile. Okay. You don't want just have random guests. You want to have guests who you believe, and not just believe actually, who you've already identified to be a potential client. Okay. And this is where your qualifying comes in. Once you start getting people who are interested with your podcast, and I'm gonna show you some numbers here so that you can see the possibility. So let's say this is an example, right? So we've contacted 63,000 leads, and we have our own podcast because we believe in what we do. We practice what we preach. So here we contacted 63,343 people. I can't pull that up. And we've already generated 2,403 people who said yes to the podcast. Now, obviously, we wouldn't be able to talk to everyone, and we don't want to. We only want to talk to potential clients. So this is where we qualify them. Before they can become a guest and book an appointment, they will go through qualifying questions, right? Who they are, we can ask them questions about the revenue of the company or the number of employees, or what industry they are, where they located, all the things. And you can even ask them specific questions about the solution that you are offering. For example, the client that I have who helps people write and publish a book, we ask them questions like, hey, do you have a book? They say no. He asks them, do you want to have a book? Right? If they say yes, then they become qualified. Let me show you here another sample of a client generated $42,000 in about 28 days, in just 28 days. So let me show you his recommendation so that you know that this is real and I'm not just making this up. So this Sir Josh Anderson, he is a consultant and he helps B2B. He is a marketing consultant. So one of the questions he would ask is, what department do you struggle in, right? If they choose marketing, then that is his indication and identification that, okay, this is a potential client. Of course, there are other questions like revenue, number of employees, and stuff like that. But look at this recommendation. After working with them, we launched a fully branded show with smart automations, consistent posting, and all the small details handled. And we saw ROI. This is the most important part. ROI in under a month. Let me share with you here a video of Sir Josh Anderson just to, show you that this is not just made up.
I actually have a kickoff call with a lead that came from you guys directly, and they signed a 6-month contract, at $7K a month. So the ROI is already here for me. It was weird because it happened to be a guy that went to my school, and he lives 45 minutes away from me, and his CMO had just quit 3 days before our podcast. Just everything lined up. No shit. This is weird. But yeah, so he signed. Our kickoff meeting on Friday, so that's great.
And this is by simply having consistent flow of meetings with his potential clients. In this case, through the podcast sales system. Again, earlier I shared with you Sir Travis Cody generated $72,000. I wanted to show you a proof that this actually happened, and I want this to come from him. How much have you already made using podcast methods so far? Is it like 10 million now?
Yeah, I wish. I think 70,000. It might be more, but I think because the first like 3 or 4 months
Yeah.
we were trying to get everything optimized, and then I got burnt out, and then we tried to have somebody outsource it. So if we wouldn't have tried to outsource it all, like I probably would have done way more, right? But I know it's been at least 70.
3 or 4 months, $70,000. And beautiful thing about this system, it just brings you the consistency. Simply because why? You're meeting consistent people that you can help, that you've identified you can help them, right? So that's the first part. You launch your podcast, and then the second part is you start booking appointments with your potential clients. Once you have that going, it's going to bring in the revenue, right? Now the byproduct of it is the presence that you create, right? So this interviews are being created on Riverside. This is what we highly suggest. Use Riverside for this one. It's like $29 per month. It's amazing. And it can easily help you publish these episodes and get it to platforms like YouTube, Spotify, right? So let me share with you another example of a client. This is a B2B founder, right? He runs a 25 million year company. Amazing, amazing company. He deploys software developers and fractional chief technology officers in companies in the US. This is a recommendation. Royan runs a well structured and effective sales system, bringing a level of organization and communication that is hard to find. His team was responsive, proactive, and consistently clear on execution and next steps. Let me show you his YouTube and how this method helped him create his presence and his podcast. So this is Software Leaders Ancestor Podcast. 125 episodes in just a few months, and all of these people are his ideal customer profile. These are mostly chief technology officers, and the others are CEOs of the tech companies that that he can help. So the byproduct that I was talking about is that when you are doing this and you're building a relationship with the guests that you have and you turn them into clients, at the same time, you are creating content for yourself. And that content that goes to YouTube, that goes to Spotify, now you have a YouTube presence, you have a Spotify presence. YouTube alone, right? When you start running ads in YouTube, you can run like $100 per week ads. And YouTube will show your content to the people who've recently searched for that particular topic. And you can expand this, right? You can ask your team itself, and we do this for our clients. We interview them and ask them the questions that their audience is already asking, and then turn that into contents. Push the short clips on YouTube, run ads, and it just all brings into one place, and this is revenue. So I hope that watching this video helped you. And if you have any questions, simply comment in below. I'm happy to assist. And if you want to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, like start putting it out there, start creating content, start connecting with your target customer. This is perfect for B2B founders simply because this is a this is modern day sales and marketing strategies, right? So if you're a B2B founder, you're an expert and you want to start leveraging these channels, right? Podcasts, LinkedIn, YouTube, and doing cold email marketing at scale. We're talking about like thousands of leads a day being contacted. We can help you. Let us know. We'll show you what we do and we'll go from there. Have a great day. Cheers.